Hey, welcome back, John. Last week we were talking here on the podcast about an infographic I came across by a Dr. Oliver Degnan, Degnan, Degnan. Geez, he's probably listening. It's like, why are you murdering my name? It's not that tough,
He's like,
right?
why am I not there? Like, why aren't you talking to me?
So he is a looks like a career coach or a life coach. And he was talking about being kind. And, I had someone, a senior leader, recently tell me, Chuck, I got one thing for you today. I said, what's that? He's like, be tough, be harsh, be what. And I'm like, all right, um, you know, you could still, I could still be kind and still hold people accountable.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah. I love that
and he
line.
just looked at me. Okay. So, and that's who I am. I'm a kind person, but I don't view kindness as a weakness. I view it as a strength. And a lot of times in HR and good leadership, it's not about being nice and it's not about being mean. I think it's about being clear, fair, consistent, and you are human too. So
Yeah.
um, last week we went over 5 things about you can still be kind and or you can be kind and still say no. You can be kind and still be honest. You can be kind and still set boundaries, right? You can be kind and still feel your emotions, and we talked about that. And John, can I ask you to repeat that thing about feeling the emotions, just not acting on your emotions
Yeah,
again?
yeah. I mean, so I'm a big believer in that there's no such thing as a bad emotion, right? I really believe that. I truly believe it. I want people to feel their emotions as part of what makes us human. And I love that. But we have to feel our emotions, but own our behaviors, right? And so just because we're angry does not mean that we can go yell at somebody or we can throw something at somebody, right? And so we have to be aware of that and know like what's the appropriate behavior for the context, for the situation. What do we need to do? As simple as that. I think it's okay to feel your emotions. I think that's a kindness to yourself.
Yeah.
It's a kindness for other people, but you do own your behaviors.
And I wanted to bring that up, even though we talked about it last week. I want to bring it up this week, listeners, if you didn't get a chance and you're just hearing that for the first time. That's so important because we're all humans and we have all these emotions and they drive our behaviors. And it's learning how to understand, how not to let your emotions take over your behaviors, but use that to drive and but temper and meter your actions. And then finally, what we talked about last week was you can be kind and still make tough decisions. And I thought that was an interesting one. And I thought about it during the time of the last time we did this podcast and talking about making those tough decisions without delaying just to keep everyone comfortable. And I made that comment that I have noticed and I have learned in my career when you try and make everyone happy, you end up making no one happy. So you've got to make that decision. You've got to move forward. And you had once said that a key to a good manager is the ability to make the right decision, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's all about decisions for me. I think understanding decisions, making decisions, it's all about, I think this is for everyone, right? I think in life, our
Mhm.
decision quality is what matters the most, right? The ability to make the best available decision, the best available choice in the moment is all everything. That's it. And so how do we do that? How do we do that on a consistent basis? And sometimes making the tough decisions may seem mean in the moment, but I think in the long run, it's always the best, not always the best decision, but it's usually the best decision.
Yeah. And so the key here was don't think you're being mean because you're making tough decisions.
Yeah.
Sometimes the kindest decision, maybe to an organization, is the best is still a hard decision for an individual, but it's best for the company. So we got 5 more today, John.
Okay.
And the first, you can be kind and still disagree. You can be kind and still avoid drama. You can be kind and protect your time. You can be kind and cut out toxic people, which I find real interesting. And then, of course, you can be kind, but lead with compassion. So, starting with, you can be kind and still disagree. And what Dr. Degnan says is you can be kind and still disagree without attacking the person. Focus on ideas, not egos. And that's brilliant. I mean, that's what we want to do, right? Let's say I disagree with a manager or an executive or a department head, and maybe they want to terminate someone too quickly, or they want to ignore a policy, or they want to deny an accommodation, or maybe they want to handle something a little more informally, right?
Right.
But it really does need documentation. And talking to them and saying, look, I understand, your perspective. I understand the business need. I see risk here. Let's talk about how to get through to this. Let's look for the right income. Let's look for a strategic partnership, but not coming at them and say, well, it figures you would say that because you're a flaming liberal, or, you can disagree without attacking the person. I don't know, John, you could probably put it in even a better perspective than what I have.
Well, I think what happens is a lot of times, and I always start my meetings out with a list of things that we should be reminded of. And one of them on there is positive intent.
Yeah.
And so I ask people like, which one stands out for you? Which is the ones? And somebody always points out positive intent. And I think the challenge with positive intent is images is the right word. We build a relationship up with somebody, and maybe we always assume that they're coming at us, or they're right based on their history, they're coming at us, blah, blah, blah. And right. So we build that, okay, anytime they talk to me, I'm going to be defensive. I'm going to be there. And that doesn't allow us to have a conversation, right? Now we're into egos. We're into dealing with our own personal perspective. We're not being open to it. And I think what we're trying to say here is you have to be open to the conversation to figure out what's there. And I think a lot of times we want to pinpoint the issue before we know what the issue is, right? We kind of go, oh, it's employee's fault. Well, the employee was working in with a set of conditions. Were the conditions ideal for them to make the best decision, right?
Right.
Or for your coworker, right? Because typically this is really a coworker thing or a boss's thing. And so kind of going through that and kind of looking at, okay, so what is the issue? Where do we go? And we say it all the time, right? We always say, well, focus on the problem, solve the problem, not the person. But I think we have attachment problems where we're attaching this thought to that person, and we may make a remark or say something that becomes off as really personal, and then that person gets defensive, and then it just goes out there, right? And so yeah. I think, again, focus on the problem.
No, I like that. In fact, if I could turn that around, you can still be, you can have someone disagree with you without taking it personally.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's what people do. They take it personally. I know sometimes I do. Okay. We're all human. And that's something I've had to learn over the years, is not to take these things personally. So,
well, and I think, a good example of that is somebody comes to you, you spent hours and weeks and months working on a report, getting it done, getting it perfect. And then somebody goes, well, that's not right. And it feels completely personal because I just spent all that time on it. And so then of course it's frustrating, but that person may be right. And so we have to kind of step back and go, I'm feeling this emotion, I'm feeling attacked, but is that their intent?
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
I love it. So you can disagree without attacking the person.
Yeah.
Focus on, don't focus on egos. The next one was you can be kind and still avoid drama. We talked a little bit about drama last week, about not getting drawn into that drama. So this kind of plays off that. Be kind and still avoid drama by choosing clarity with a clarity and calm, overreaction and escalation. And, you know, I see that in so many places, not just in the workplace.
Right.
For example, I live in a condo association now. This is one of my homes as I'm working here in the Florida Keys. I'm living in this condo, and I've never had condo life, right? And there's a board, and people disagree with the board, and people, they want this, they want that. People are always just kind of snipping and fighting, and you might see that in the workplace too. But I'm reminded of a scene from The Godfather. Okay.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, I know. Okay.
Bringing out the movies.
Yeah, but in The Godfather, there's a situation where the Marlon Brando's character, Godfather, Don Corleone, his son is killed, and other mob bosses are after him, and they're doing all these incursions, and they try and kill him. And at one point, he stops and he has a big meeting of all the crime families, and he says, "You know what? This fighting, it's time to bring the peace, because this is not good for business." In other words, we have we have
Right.
gambling, and we have this, we have that, we have all these crime things going. We're fighting each other, and we're not bringing in the business. So let's drop the drama, let's drop the fighting, and let's get back to business, clarity and calm. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, that's a weird example.
Okay.
Right, and because like you're basically saying like, hey, this is what the crime families do. You guys should do the same thing as the crime families.
No.
Yeah, and so I don't know. To me, when you say you can be kind, and still avoid drama, to me it's like be kind, avoid drama. Right? I don't think there's a still in there. I don't think it's like, oh, I'm going to avoid this, right? And so clarity is really important. Being calm, being that calm, peaceful person is just part of it, right? And so I think what we're trying to say is there's going to be people that come at you, right? And they're going to be blah, blah, blah. And your role is to kind of walk through that and just let it roll off of you, right? And so kind of getting in there, I think, could be really important to kind of think through that and go, okay, what are we doing? And not getting involved in other people's drama. And people that have drama want to pull you into it, right? They want to tell you their stories, and this is a thing that's happening. And to me, I think it's just be kind, avoid drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's come at that with that angle then.
Okay.
Avoiding drama, choosing clarity and calm. There are workplaces, they get messy. There's texts, there's rumors, there's all kind of crazy things. HR's job, a leader's job, is to, when these things come to them, their job is to lower the temperature, not, how about this, not add, quote, oxygen to that fire.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Let's bring the oxygen masks to the people in the room. Let's not throw on more gasoline.
Do you think so? This one is good, but do you think culture can help with this? Strong cultures can help with this?
Yeah, strong cultures can help. Confident cultures can help. drama wants reaction,
Yeah.
and maybe in weak cultures there tends to be weaker managers, weaker expectations, maybe not a focus on the business. Right? Culture focuses you, and if
Right.
you don't have focus, drama wants that reaction, and your leadership and HR needs to just realize that and stay maybe with a process. That's why I wrote a book too about process. If I can just say, when I was with my kids and they were taking martial arts and all that stuff, we learned about this concept, and I think it was called chi. It was some where you would, people might get you're aggravated, or you're in an argument with people, and if you can just calm down, you stay calm and you push that out, emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
mentally, maybe
It's your cheat.
energy wise, a calm energy,
Yeah.
it brings things down. So I think that goes with your statement that, does a strong culture help? And most definitely, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think there's a couple things you deal with. You deal with the individual drama, but you have to deal with the culture organizational in such a way that drama is not a thing, right? I mean, there's always going to be snippy, but you can have some really clear focus. This is our presentation. This is how we deal with things, and can be really stronger.
All right. So you can be kind and still protect your time. So Dr. Oliver says, uh, protect your time, because how you spend it reflects what you truly value. And I liked your example. Was it from last week where you said, you know what, I'm getting my work done, I've got my boundaries, I'm going to protect my time, and I'm leaving at a certain time because I value being home with, let's say, my children or my
Yeah.
families, and I think that that does say volumes. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the things we hear a lot, right? We hear a lot of, you call somebody up or you ask somebody to help you or you need help or whatever, and they're like, I'm busy. Anytime anybody says, hey, I'm busy, that means that whatever they're doing is a higher priority than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are basically saying, look, this is more important. And if they're out, if that's work and they're like, I'm just going to hang out here, and I'm not going to care. That, to me, that means they don't value our relationship. They don't value that partnership, whatever. And so protecting your time shows that protect your priorities. What is your priorities? What are those things that are really important to you? And knowing that and spending your time on that is okay. And I say this to every organization I work with. I can guarantee that you're doing things that no longer bring value to that organization. Guarantee. But people still do them because it's like, oh, I feel good because I'm busy, so I'm going to keep doing them. You said this earlier. You said this last week, Chuck, or a couple weeks ago. You said, when I don't have anything to do, I start looking around like I'm doing something wrong. And if you've done your priorities and you got everything done, then you're good, right? You've done it. You buttoned everything up. And we should not feel like I have to be busy. We should be busy doing the work that matters, and then nothing else does, right? And so protecting your own time becomes important. There's that story, Chuck. Can I tell the story? I don't know.
Tell the story, John.
You probably know the story about the professor that comes into the classroom. And he comes into the classroom, right? And he's carrying this big glass jar, and he puts the glass jar down on the table, and he takes these big boulders and he puts it into the jar, and he asks the students, hey, is this full? And they're all like, yeah, it's full. And then he comes up and he has another container with smaller rocks, and he puts those in around the boulders, and they fit around the boulders, and it looks like it's filled. And they're like, is it filled? And they're like, it looks filled, but we don't trust you anymore. And so then he comes and he gets another jar, this time of sand, and he puts the sand in there. And it fills it all up, right? And in some videos, he'll pour a beer into it. So, yeah, right. So, got it. Right now, it's full up. And he says, this is your life. This glass jar is your life. Those big boulders are the things that are really important to your family, your relationships, your career, those really big things. Those stones are the smaller things,
Mm-hmm.
paying the rent, getting those things done, doing whatever, right? And then the sand is really the small stuff. And then he says, look, if you empty this jar and you put sand in there first, you're never going to get all the boulders, the big things that you want to accomplish in life. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so when we say be kind and still own our time, we're saying these are our priorities. These are the things I want to get done in my life. These are the things that are important to me. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I like that. And if I could just cap this off, that if you don't protect your time, that's what connects to burnout. That could lead to burnout, lead to frustration. Everything becomes an emergency, and you as a leader or HR are reactive all the time. And in fact, going with your Boulder example, I know two guys that wrote a book that talks about systems and checklists to help better protect your time. And those two, I hear it's a guy named Chuck and John. And if you look behind me, folks, you can see the Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition available on Amazon.com. Search for the Ultimate Guide to HR or go to ultimateguidetohr.com. Little plug there.
Yeah, a little plug there talking about systems. Yeah, I love systems.
Sure.
Right? Systems create consistency. Systems help us get where we need to go.
Dr. Oliver has two more.
Okay.
So you can still be kind. Once again, you can be kind. You can be a kind person and still cut out toxic people, even if history or proximity to those toxic people makes it difficult. Now, I think I want to be careful with the term toxic people because, we know that behavior, there could be some mental illness, some mental challenges, but overall, if someone is bad for the business, and we've already talked about this, sometimes the kind thing is to let the person go. If they're toxic to the culture. And even on a personal level, if someone is bringing you down rather than boosting you up in a relationship, you need to think about, is that the relationship you want to be in? If you have employees that are bringing down your operation but not boosting it up in any way, you probably need to take a look at another, what would you call it, John? Another opportunity that would be a better fit, or a separation. What do you think? What have you learned in your classes that you've taught?
Well, again, it's the definition of what a toxic person is, right? But a toxic person is someone that steals your energy. And in your personal life, that may be easier, but it may be harder, right? Because that person may be a family member. It could be a significant other. But we need to be aware of that, right? And so you can still be kind. You can still be a kind person and get rid of toxic relationships. I think it becomes harder when you have a toxic employee, and I'm defining toxic as someone that steals your energy, and you're not the boss. You're just a coworker, and you're like, ugh. And so understanding that that person may steal your energy, but understanding what are the boundaries that you're putting in place to be like, look, I'm doing my work. This is what I'm doing. I'm not going to put up with them not doing their work and not having to do extra work because they didn't do their work, and really kind of holding firm to that.
Yeah. John, if I could throw another angle on this.
Sure.
It's about cutting out toxic people, even when maybe their history makes it difficult. What could be their history? Well, what if they are popular? What if they have been there for a long time? What if they are a high performing person and they're personally liked? And a lot of that ultimately does tie to your favorite word, culture, right? So if a top performer is still bullying others, if a top
Yeah,
performer
but
is still undermining managers, mistreats coworkers, creates that fear, they're damaging the organization.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think I
Toxic.
mean, I think that to me is a simple thing, right? You just terminate that employee. I don't care if they're the subject matter
But
expert,
they're
they're fantastic.
popular. Everyone likes them in a
No,
way. The
but you just said
management
they're a
loves them.
toxic person, and then they say mean things to other people, and they're not good with the customers, and you said all that. Um, if they're a subject matter expert and everybody likes them,
Not everybody, but
okay.
like maybe certain people like
But
them.
yeah, but then again, right? Again, what we find is when we have those people that steal energy, right? And so you can have a subject matter expert; they're really good at their job,
Vampire.
and people are they have charisma, right? And so people are attracted. Oh, they're really good and that kind of stuff. But if they're not doing what's beneficial for the whole organization, it's an easy decision for me. We're getting rid of that person.
Wow.
I will say so. I worked at this big company. I'm not going to mention the name because I'm going to say something. I worked at this big company, and there was a senior vice president of marketing, and a lot of people liked this person. They thought he had a lot of great ideas and a lot of great things. I did not like his leadership style at all. And he ended up being dismissed, or his contract wasn't renewed. I think it was a great thing for the organization because I don't think he was a right fit for the organization. That doesn't mean he was a bad person. Doesn't mean that he didn't go on to do big things. He did, but he just wasn't the right person for our organization. And
Yeah.
so you got to get rid of those people.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I guess the lesson here for me, where I was going, I think with your lesson is even if they may be a high performer, high in sales, I see this in salespeople,
Oh yeah,
does not excuse harmful behavior.
absolutely.
You've got to
not.
get rid of them. Okay.
Get rid of them. Fire.
All right, John, we're
Yeah.
down to our final concept here.
Okay.
And I love the way our discussions have gone. There's so much here we could keep breaking down, but let's talk about you can be kind and still lead with compassion, while still holding standards and expectations high. And
Can I say something before you go into your riff here? I think it should change, right? And so I think you can be kind and still hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, again, right, but the way it looks like, oh, you can lead with compassion. Yes, you can lead with compassion, but compassion and kindness kind of go hand in hand for me. But I think the challenge for people as leaders is to hold people accountable and still feel like they're a good, kind person.
Yeah. No, you're right. We can still care about people, but still require good attendance. We can still support our employees, but still expect professionalism. We can, be compassionate and still protect the business. So I think if done and done well, and these are, what's the word? These are things that can be learned. Okay, it's sometimes they don't come easy to some people, but compassion and accountability can get along together, I think is what I heard you say.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, accountability is compassion. You said it earlier. I don't know if it was this week or last week, but when we have accountability, right? And this is to me really important. When we have accountability, we're holding everyone to a certain standard. When that standard slips for whatever reason, you've set a new standard. Mm-hmm. You said, well, that's okay. It's okay if you miss 2 days a week. That's the I did this when my first manager jobs. I had an employee that would come in, was in the theater, would come in about 15, 20 minutes before showtime. had a call an hour before showtime so they could make sure that everything was set up, everything was ready to go. And I allowed it. I didn't do anything about it because I didn't want to deal with the conflict. But I wasn't, because then everyone else is looking around going, why is it okay for him to do it? And I had no answer to that because it wasn't. But there wasn't any consequences because I was afraid, well, I get rid of that person, I may get rid of the whole team, right? To your point earlier on. But that would have been the right thing to do because I'm going to have this standard. I'm going to have this accountability. I have to hold people to it. Now, it's one thing to be like, oh, something terrible happened. Your cat's sick and you want to go to, I get that. I'm going to give you compassion. I want to make sure that's okay. But I'm still going to hold you accountable to the standards that I've set.
Yeah. Yeah. So bottom line is, like you said, compassion and accountability, they can belong together. Kind HR, kind leadership does not necessarily mean soft HR. So I've enjoyed our conversation over the last 2 sessions, John, where we've, talked about leadership concepts that sound simple, but they're actually, I think, some of the hardest things for managers and HR professionals to practice. Now, maybe not hard for you because you're a leadership guru and you teach these things and you teach emotional intelligence, right? But it is tough to remember and do these things.
I mean, again, I will say that I get challenged with conversations. I get challenged with all the things we've been talking about because I think they are difficult. I probably have a better understanding of what I need to do. I probably have better knowledge about that than most people. That doesn't mean I always do it.
Yeah. Folks, thanks for listening to the podcast. At the end of the day, I just want to emphasize kindness is not the absence of accountability. Kindness is how we deliver that accountability. It's about the tone, the timing, the fairness, the respect we bring to these conversations. The best leaders, they don't choose between caring about people and protecting the standards. They do both. And they can lead with compassion, but they don't lower the bar. And so in HR and in overall leadership, I guess I'm just going to say HR because I'm in HR, but that's one of the clear signs of mature leadership. The ability to be kind and honest, but still hold the line.
Yeah, hold people accountable. I think it's one of the most important things we do as leaders. You can be nice. I've had nice bosses, generous bosses, but that doesn't mean they're not holding me accountable to my job. In fact, what we find when we talk to employees is they want to be held accountable, right? Yeah. And they want their fellow employees to be held to the same accountability, but they want to be held accountable for their job, which means we're giving them ownership.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining me on this journey tonight, John.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I could be here just kind of, hanging around with you, listening, giving my 2 cents.
You gave more than 2 cents today. You gave 4 or 5 cents.
Woohoo!
We love that. See you next week, folks.
See you next week, Chuck.